we'll be going through how to build the template that you need in order for people to be able to submit expenses. And if we just go on to the next slide there, there's not an awful lot to the agenda. So creating and editing the templates, and then how you generate a new form, and then how to use it. So I'll show you how it works from an employee perspective, and then after that, we'll just go through any questions that people might have on there as well. So that's what we'll be looking at today. And if I now switch to my payroll screen, I'm going to show you how it all works. Now, the version I'm using is the premium version of the software, but to be perfectly honest, they all work exactly the same way. You may find that you have additional menus that I don't have on here, but that will be because you've got the professional version on, and I'm only using the premium one. I use the premium one because that's the more common one. The people do have the professional version, which has things like recruitment and stuff like that, but the more common version is the premium one because the majority of clients who have any of the HR functionality do tend to go with that one because it gives them the main things that they need, things like holiday requests and expenses and timesheets and things like that. Now, the other thing is that what I'm going through today also applies for creating timesheets for employees as well. Now, if you do have any questions, please feel free to put them into the questions bit as we go along. However, I'll only answer them at the end of the session. So put them through, that's fine, but I will answer them when we get to the end, when we get to the Q&A bit. So don't worry too much if I don't. It's only because I don't pay any attention to them until I get to that point. So I think we will be doing a timesheets one at some point, but really it's the same thing. They work exactly the same way. So if you want people to be able to submit expenses into the system, which can then be approved into the payroll by the administrators, then the first thing that you need to do is create a template to use. Now, for those of you who are familiar with using a bulk timesheet, it's exactly the same because you start with a bulk timesheet and then you build some extra bits onto it. So the first thing that we have to do is create our bulk timesheet. And to do that, we go down into the admin area here. And my computer is very intent on making me update something today. I don't know what it is, but it keeps asking me in inopportune moments. So I keep telling it no. So if we go into the admin screens in the admin area there, and we can close the organization menu. We're not using that. It's actually in the payroll menu that we need to go. So before you can do anything else, you have to have a template with the various expense types that you want to use. So if we go into the bulk timesheet templates to begin with, and I'm going to create that. So if we just delete those and click on new, and the first thing we need to do is give it a name. So I'm just going to call it expenses 01. There we go. You can call it what you like. It really doesn't matter, but you will be using this on a regular basis if you're going to use the service. So it's a good idea just to give it something reasonably generic. Then you need the company. So whatever the company is, just select the menu from there. And incidentally, if you have more than one payroll, I've only got one. But if you've got more than one, then if you want to be able to use the expenses module for all of them, you have to create a separate one for each. So you can copy and clone them, but you do have to have a separate one for each payroll that you're running. So some people, for example, you might have a weekly and a monthly one. And if you want people to put expenses through on both, then you'll need a weekly and a monthly one for that. Now, below this, and for those of you who use the bulk timesheet already and who may have done a training session with me, I don't know, but you tend to find that this bit down here, most people don't bother with it. It's not really required for an ordinary timesheet. However, it is important when you're using it for expenses or for timesheets that the employees will be putting through. So if they're putting through their own overtime and that kind of thing, then this bit becomes a bit more important. Not necessarily for these. It's really entirely up to you whether you choose those. Most of the time you don't need them, but some people do like to have the code totals on there. However, what you do have to do is tell it whether you're creating an expense or a timesheet template. So as I say, the principle is the same for the templates for the timesheets that the employees will be using as well. We're creating an expense one today, so I've chosen the expense option on there. So that's the first screen that we have to create, but there's another tab here, and that has a list of all the pay and deduction elements on. Obviously, we only want to create expenses, but it does actually have everything on here. So all the pay elements that you've got within the system, they will all show on here. Now, you can see here the incorrectly spelt accommodation. So I apologize for that. I can't change it, but it doesn't. It does stick out every time I see it. But we're just going to put a couple of these on. It's just reminding me it's doing things again. And that's going to include things like air travel accommodation, but you may have others on, it depends. I'm just picking up a couple of these so that we can use them. And you can change the order of these as well. If you click on these columns, it's actually sorting them by name at the moment, but you can change those if you want to sort them by code or something like that. Then you can just click on the column and it will do that. So I'm just going down the list here for the things that we can have. We'll have some parking, rail travel, subsistence, and travel. There we go. I do wish it had stopped giving me those notifications. But anyway, we've got all of our different expense types on there now. So you just pick the ones that you want, just tick the boxes for each one. And once you've done that, we create it. So there we go. I have now created my expense. There it is, a little bit further down there. You can see it. If you want to copy it, so as I said earlier, if you've got more than one database, then you might want to copy that so that you can use the same one for others. So you can just click on the button there with the plus sign on it, filling it in with a different name because it won't let you use the same name twice, and then just save it because you've got all the things on it that you want. But you can also edit them as well. So you can click on the edit button, you can go in, you can change those if you need to. Now, once you've got that template, you've done part of it, but you haven't actually completed everything because at the moment you've got enough on there for you to be able to put expenses onto the payroll, but you haven't yet got enough of a template there to be able to let other people use it. So the next thing you have to do is create a timesheet template. And don't let the name fool you because that also covers expenses. So if we just go onto the timesheet template there and click on new, and again, I'm just going to call it expenses one. And I'm going to do the same with the description. Now, down here, you can see your timesheet template and expenses template. Now, if you're creating a timesheet and an expense template for the employees to use, then you choose one from each of these. You just go in there and select the right one. Now, in this instance, we are only creating an expenses timesheet. So if we just go in here, and there is the expenses one that I have just created. So you can put whatever you like on that. We can select this, and after that, you can then decide what you want to see for the employees to fill in. Now, I've only created one here that's going to be for expenses. I'm not doing it for timesheets. So if we just go to the expenses fields, and you can see all the things that you want to see on there. Now, it automatically ticks most of these, but you don't have to have all of them if you don't want to. And the other thing is you can change the names on them as well. So it defaults to being an hours code because that's just the way the system sees it. But if you want to change the names of these, you can do. So if I change that to expense code, and you can also choose to change the name of these as well. So if you want units or rate or whatever, not all of them require rates. In fact, none of the ones that I've got on there, that possible mileage actually though might be built in, but I'm just going to take that one off and uh, account and department, because I don't really need those for what I'm doing with this. Now you can change the order as well, so you can see here got the expense code, the units, and if you want to rearrange these, you can use the arrows to move them up and down. So you can choose to change those around if you want to on there as well. Now, once you've got the fields that you want to see on here, you can then go ahead and create that. So if we just click on create, there we go. And we've now got our expenses sheet. So if we click on edit there, we can see that's the template that I created in the bulk timesheet templates area, and it's going to use that for the types of expense. But this one here that we just created is so that we can tell it what we actually want to see on there. Now you may think that we've finished, but we haven't, because this is really so far all we've done is create it. We haven't done anything else with it yet. So once you've actually created the template, you then have to assign that to the group profiles that will be using it. So if we go into the security area and then go into group profiles in the top right there. Now, there are a number of different profiles on here. You may actually have the same ones that I've got, because some people do have these additional ones, but you'll at least have those three: the admin, the manager, and the employee. And the one that I'm going to do this for today is the employee profile. So if we just go into that, and you can see at the moment, if we go in here, we got the names, etc. But if we scroll down, you've got this bit here. It says payroll template. And at the moment, it's using ESS. Now, if I select that, I can change that to expenses 1 instead. So you do have to do this bit. If you don't do it, they won't see it. And this is well, I wouldn't say a common thing, but I do get emails from people sometimes who have tried setting this up themselves, and they've set the template up, they've built the template, and then nobody can actually input anything. And they email and say, oh, we can't do this. Why is it not working? And the reason is usually because they've forgotten to go into the security area, to go into the group profiles, and then select the profile type that they want this to work for, and to choose the template. If you don't do that bit, it won't show it. It's as simple as that. So if we update that, and there we go. We've now created the template, and we've now assigned that to the profile. Now, if you need the managers to be able to put their own expenses through, you'd also have to go into the edit button there and do the same for them as well. But we've got everything the way that we need it now. So as it stands, we can now put our expenses through, which is great. And what I'm going to do here at this point is log out, because I'm going to now log in as my employee login, and we're actually going to see how these are submitted. So we're now going to log in as Thomas. I was logged in as George, but I'm now going to log in as Thomas. There we go. And I'm now going to put the password in, because I haven't saved this one. Because I don't use it very often. Here we go. Now, if you created a timesheet rather than an expense, you can click on here, on the shortcut here, and that will take you into the timesheets and expenses. The thing is, though, we haven't. What we're actually wanting to do is create an expense. So that shortcut that you get there, even though it says timesheet and expenses submission date, it only actually takes you to the timesheet one. It doesn't take you to the expenses. If you want to do the expenses, you have to go into the work menu on the left hand side there, and you've got the option for timesheet or expenses. So if we choose expenses, there we go. And as you can see here, it's got this set of columns here, which shows the codes, the units, etc. And if you remember, they do actually match what I chose when I was creating the timesheet template. So we created the bulk timesheet template, which had all the different expense codes on it, and then we created the timesheet template, which had the different fields that we wanted the employee to be able to fill in. So that's why it's showing this on here now, because this is the one that I chose. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a new one, and we're going to put the date in. So let's just say it was the 5th, Monday the 5th, and there's the expense code, and we just pick up whatever we want on there. So we have some parking for instance, and then in here we can say we spent £20 on parking, which is perfectly legitimate and actually possibly cheap. But you can also add a comment on there as well if you want to, because I put the option on. You don't have to have a comment, but yeah, if you want to, you can. And then the status one doesn't do anything. That's just telling you what point it's at. So if we just do all that, save it. Ah, so it does want the rate. Bear with me for a moment. This is actually quite a good thing because I can show you how to amend it if we need to. So if we go back in as the admin, I think it's because I put mileage on it. So if we just go back in here again now, and one of those days today. Right, going back in here and back into the admin screens and back into the payroll menu, back into the bulk timesheets, and there is the expenses one. Now, if we go back in here and if we go to the bulk timesheet, to the timesheet template, sorry, and go to the expenses one and go to the expenses field and retake the rate. So there we go. We've now got the rate on there. We update that and come back out to the main screen. And I'm now going to log out and we'll log back in as Thomas again. That's all good. Fine. Right. Right, so back in as Thomas. So we go back into the work area and go into the expenses. And we'll add a new one on there. So once again, we'll go in there, change that to May and the expense code. And once again, I'm going to put parking on there. And the rate I'm just going to put through as 1 because it doesn't actually use the rate for this one. But the reason why it's asking for the rate is because I put mileage on it and sometimes that does require a rate. So in here, we want the rate, the units. So I'm going to put £20 on there. And as I say, if you want to put a comment on, you can, but that's only because I actually put a comment on. You don't have to have comments on there, but a lot of people like to, just so that if there's any particular reason, then the employee can put that on. But if I save that now, so when it saves the change here, that's all it's doing. It's not doing anything else with it. It is just saving it at this point. So we have saved the item, but we've not done anything with it. Now, some people might submit these as they go along, but others, I tend to do it this way. If I ever do have to put them through, I just save them all up and then do them all at once. So we can just keep adding things on. And if we do another one here for maybe the 7th, and we can have rail travel. And once again, we'll put the rate on there as just one, and that might have been £30. So we put that through as well, and then save it. Now you'll notice that when you're saving this, after that, it will then allow you to add an attachment as well. So if you've got a receipt or anything that you need to put on there, then you just go on and you find the receipt that you want, and you can then put it on. Now, there's not really anything that I can use on here as a receipt, but you just select it and then click on open, and it will then upload it onto here. Now, once you've got all of your expenses on here and you're ready to submit it, so at the moment, as I say, it's just sitting there with the information. It's not doing anything else. So once we're ready to submit all these, we just click on the submit button there. We'll ask you, are you sure you want to submit it? So you just say yes to that. And there you go. And you can see there that the status has changed when it's done that. So it's now shown that the request has been submitted. So the status bit you don't change yourself. That is just something that the system does as it goes along. And you do have to have the status. It is a required field. It won't let you untick that one. It does want to have that one. Now, if you haven't put them through, you can delete them. And in actual fact, it's still possible to delete them at this point as well. It'll just retract it. But it's up to you. I mean, if you have to do that for whatever reason, the option is there to do so. Now, what's happened at the moment, it's sent that to the manager so that it can be approved. So if we now log in as Charlotte, who is my manager login, and there we go. So this is the manager dashboard. So managers actually get to see the admin's screen for the HR side of the system. Full admins get to see payroll and the HR. You can have an HR admin as well who only gets to see the HR side. So essentially what the manager sees when they log into the system is the HR admin screen. It has a couple of bits missing, so they don't get the admin bit, they don't get the security bit. So there are certain menus that are missing from here, but there's enough on here for the manager to be able to do what they're supposed to do. Now they do get an email notification in order to make them aware of the fact that somebody has put expenses through. But if we go into here under the notifications, which are also being a bit slow today, you usually get all these kind of problems on Wednesdays rather than Tuesdays, but there we go. So you can see here we got the expenses claim on there. And if I click on view, that will take me into the expenses area, the authorizations for that. The thing is, though, there are a couple of different places that you can get to the relevant area. So if we scroll down the screen here a bit, you can see we've got expenses there. There are 2 of them waiting to be authorized. But you can also do it through the authorization screen as well, because on here you've got review the expenses. So it doesn't matter which one you do it from. They all take you to the same place in the end. So we just go into the review expenses. And here we are. So there's Thomas's expenses on there all ready to be reviewed. Now, if you have put an attachment on there for the expenses, then they will be able to see that as well. And you've got this whole area here where they can pick up the information that they need to. Now, if the manager wants to, they can approve everything at once. So they can go in there and just approve everybody all at once. And otherwise, you can just do it on an individual basis. And again, you can change the order on there as well if you want to by clicking on the columns, and it'll change the order for you. But you've also got these extra bits here. So you've got show all. Now that just means it will show every expense, even if it's been approved or not. So you can see the past ones on there as well. But if you just want to show submitted, it won't let you approve all unless you've got it set to show submitted. But you can also see any modified ones as well. So if a manager has sent something back to the employee because it needed to be changed, for example, then they would be able to see that on here. They'd be able to see the modified ones. Now, as I say, we can approve all of those if we want to. And if you've got lots of them, there's a filter as well. So if you're looking for something specific, you can switch on the toggle filter and you can filter out whatever it is that you're looking for as well. So there's a few tools on there that help. And you can also choose the date range. So if you're looking for something specific for a specific date, then you can go in there and you can choose the date range that you want to use as well. Now, assuming that you're happy with these, then as I say, you could just approve the whole lot, but they can be approved individually as well, of course. And you can see here, well, these very Roman thumbs up, thumbs down, and then you've got this I symbol at the end. That basically just means that you want further information. Now, if you tick the box, or should I say the cross, there under the green one, then that will authorize it, but it won't do anything with it immediately. So if we just tick those, but you can also, of course, refuse them. And if that's the case, it'll just go back, tell the employee that's been refused, and they'll have to resubmit it, put a new one through for it. But you can also choose to send them back for further information. So if it's just that they've forgotten to add their receipt or something like that, then instead of removing it completely, you can just send it back to them so that it can be updated. Now, if you do it as it stands, they won't really know why you've done it, because all they'll get is you require further information. They will get a notification, but it won't really tell them anything. So if you click on one of these, there is an approver's comment area as well. So if you need to send it back for further information, you can actually put a comment on it. So you can say you forgot to put your receipt on, or it's the wrong code, or whatever, it doesn't really matter, but you just put your note on there. And then when it goes back, the employee will at least know why you're sending it back to them for review. They will then be able to modify it and then send it back to you. And then it will show in the modified area. So it will show all as well and show submitted, but you'll also see it and show modified too. So I'm just going to approve them because we want to see the next step. So if we save those, there we go. And as you can see, they've disappeared. Now that's because they've now gone to the administrators for approval. So if we log out of here now, and I'm going to log back in as my admin, as George. So if we go back in here, there we go. Incidentally, authorizations can be done from both sides of the system as well. So we've seen how it works for the managers. If you go into the admin area as an admin, if you go into the HR area, then you will get the approval screens the same way here. So you can see down there we've got some expenses to approve, but you can also do it through the payroll side as well. So obviously managers will only ever see the admin for the HR side, but as a full admin, you would be able to do this from both sides. Now, on here, you can go down to approvals there, and that will take you into the right place. But you can also do it through here as well. So if we go into the authorizations, or usually in here, you'll also be able to do it through the shortcut in the expenses area there as well. So we've got a shortcut for each of them. And if I click on view, that'll take me to the right place. But whichever shortcut you use, they'll take you in here. Now, as an administrator, you can also approve as the manager as well. So if you know that there's a manager who isn't in and that one of the employees would be sending expenses through, you can actually go in and approve them on their behalf if you want to. But we're actually interested in just the administrator one here. So if we just do that, and here we are. So you can see there's Thomas's different expenses that have been put through. And you've got the same options along the top there that the managers have got, but you also have an extra one there which allows you to see the manager approved ones. So you can see whether it was something that was approved by an admin or whether it was approved by a manager. And you can also, in the previous screens, as I say, you've got a shortcut there where you can go in and actually approve them as a manager if you need to for whatever reason. This screen, though, works the same way as the one for the manager. You have an extra button, but essentially it all works exactly the same way. You've got the same options on here, submitted, show all, and you can approve them all at once if you want to, but in the end, it's up to you. They all work the same way. You also have the power to be able to refuse them if the manager's missed something. And also you've got the I symbol there if you need to send it back for further information, and that would then be pushed back down the line to the employee. So it goes down by stages. You go to the manager and then the employee. So might be the manager can amend something, but it depends on the circumstances really. So once again, I'm just going to approve those. There we go, and save. Now once you've done that, they're in the system, but they haven't really gone anywhere yet. So once you have approved those as an administrator, the next thing that you have to do is go into the payroll menu and import the self-service items. Now, if we just do that, so click on import self-service, and then you click on run process. There we go. And that's all there is to it, because once you do that, that then pushes it into the payroll, and that will then be paid out for this period. And usually, if we just go into Thomas, and then go into the pay and deductions area and the variable pay, and there you go. So there's a couple in there that I'd already added in myself, the adjustment and the bonus there. But in addition to that, you can see that it's now got the parking and the rail travel as well. And it's telling me there that they're not taxable or annuable because they're expenses. So the elements they know what they are. They know whether things have to be taxed or nationally insured. So the system knows what they are from the element on there. But we've got the parking and the rail travel. And it is actually possible to edit those as well if you need to for whatever reason. So you can go in here if you need to and you can edit them. It's taking its time to actually bring any of this stuff up today, but you can actually do that. So if you needed to go in, you can just go in and you can amend that value to something else and then save it, and it will update. So even at this stage, if somebody comes to you and say, actually, that was wrong, obviously at this point, there's no way that the system can authenticate it with a receipt or anything. But if you think that it needs to be altered for whatever reason, then you can actually go in here and you can tweak it if you need to. So that's how you get the expenses in. And as I say, it works on the same principle for the timesheets as well. But the difference is that when you go into the admin area, and you go into the admin screens, when you're creating the bulk timesheet which will have the things on that you need, which again you do through here. Instead of calling it expenses, you'd choose the timesheet option. So down there, where it says expenses, you choose timesheet, and then when you were creating the timesheet template, whereas on here I just use the expenses fields, there is one there for the timesheets, but you do have to select a timesheet to do that. And as I say, I think we'll probably do one for that as well. It's just that today I'm doing the expenses. So that is how you create an expenses template for the employees to use, how you assign it. So you do that through the security area. And then we've also seen how we get all the information into that as well. So the next thing is we need to do the questions and answers. So let me just stop sharing the screen there, and we will go and see if anybody's put any questions in. So, and thank you for your patience today, because as far as systems have gone, this has been a complete disaster. No, it wasn't just you, Natalie. It was actually everybody. It was my computer. It decided to have a fit. That's why I actually let it do what it wanted to do the second time, because the first time I ignored it and then it decided to have a failure. So I thought, well, I'm not going to do that again. I'll just let it do what it needs to do. So does the manager get an email that the expense has been submitted? Absolutely, they do. They get an email and they also get a notification through the system as well. Do they get an email to say it needs further information? So yes, absolutely. Whenever there is a change like that, then it will send an email to the relevant person. So for instance, if you put, as a manager, if you send it back to the employee to tell them that they forgot to put the receipt on or something like that, then it will send an email to the employee to let them know. So they don't just get the notifications in the system, they do get the emails too with that. Can the manager level of approval be removed? That's a good question, actually. I might have to chase that one. In theory, you can just go in as an administrator and pick them. So the straightforward way to do it would be that in the hierarchy, the employees would report directly to the administrator, and that means the administrator would get the notifications for it. It doesn't actually negate the need for a manager approval, but it does mean that the administrator would be the one who would get it. The standard setup is that it has to go through a manager and then an admin approval. So even if a manager, if an admin does approve it as a manager, they then have to go in and approve it as an administrator. Now, there's no way that you can change that within the system. It still needs both of those stages. I don't know, though, to be perfectly honest, because nobody's ever asked that question before. But I don't know whether it would be possible to make a change in the background for that. But I'll see if I can find out for you on that. So I'm just making a note of the name there so that I can chase that one up. Bear with me for a second, just while I do that. And there we go. Okay, so I'll find out for you with that one. Can you import to self-service more than once per paid period? Yes, you can. As I said near the beginning, when we were actually logged in as Thomas, you can submit data individually if you want to. So you can put through something, and then later on you can then go in and save something else and submit that as well. So you can do it piecemeal like that, or you can just save them all up and then submit them all at once. The system will allow for all of them, as long as you get all the information in before the processing or the lockdown stage, whichever version of the system that you've actually got, because it will depend whether you're managed or software. sorry, I'm losing my voice now as well. Then yes, you can actually put things through in pieces if you want to do that. What about the mileage for own car? Well, it will be 45 pence for the first 10,000 miles. Usually for the mileage part of things, they are set up according to the standard rules. So um, as far as that goes, it usually means that there's more than one code in there for it. So you'd have to refer back to find out exactly what's been set up for you in there. But it usually goes off the standard rules because it varies as well. Because if you don't have a car allowance, then usually the mileage is more. If you have a car allowance, then the mileage is less, and then you can claim it back off HMRC later on. Because I've had to do both of those over the years. So it does depend on the way that the element is set up. That's something that you probably have to check with those. And I can see you got the same question there. That, as I say, it will depend on the mileage. I'd normally expect there to be more than one mileage type in there if you're using the different rules. So if you've got some people who've got a car allowance and some people who don't, then it will depend on the element that you've actually got built into it. Mine are all very generic. Mine are not bespoke in any way. They've just put things in so that I can demonstrate them. But for yourselves, it will be more dependent on the way that it's been set up for you. What else have we got here? Can we process with different currencies? No, it doesn't allow for different currencies on there. Once again, I've never been asked that before. I don't know whether we can add additional currencies, but that would require some kind of conversion as well. So my gut instinct is to say no. But again, I can check that and see if we find out, but I wouldn't think so, to be perfectly honest. And then we've got, can an additional expense be added, a payment for a DBS update fee? You can have additional expenses added, but bear in mind that the expenses are really just pay elements. They don't have the same rules as a standard pay element because they're not normally taxable or NIable, but they are just ordinary pay elements or deduction elements. So they can only be created by more pay and added in for you. So if you do need any additional ones putting in, then you'd have to speak to us and we would be able to then sort those out for you. There is usually a charge for additional elements on there though. Now that's all the questions that we've got on there, unless anybody's got any others. So I'm just going to wait for a minute just to see if anybody comes up with any others. I can usually see if anybody's typing. It tells me, but here we are. Will they automatically update the P11D? Again, that depends on the service that we've got for you. So if you've got managed P11Ds, then those expenses that go through on that, yes, they would be updated for you on there. It does depend on the level of service that you've got as well, though. And is the process of approval different if you only have the payroll system and not HR? Well, as far as that goes, the approval process, in order to be able to use it, you do have to be able to have access to the HR side of the system. The reason being that managers have got to have that dashboard. So you do have to at least have the premium version of the system in order for it to work. Because if you don't, then the HR admins and the manager admins don't have a dashboard that they can use. So that's why I say it's the premium professional. I was talking about that at the beginning. It's only really those two that you can use this on. If you want to be able to use those services, then you do have to have the premium or the professional version for it. So who authorizes administrators' expenses? It is actually possible to have an administrator reporting to another administrator for expenses to be approved. So that will depend on your hierarchy and how it's been built. If you do have if you do have an administrator who's reporting to somebody else, like a manager, for example, then they will still be able to approve it, but obviously one of the administrators would have to do the import. So in theory, it is actually possible to have an administrator reporting to somebody who can approve it, but it's usually somebody else who is an administrator, and it would still require the bulk uh, the approval for the in the payroll area that I showed you at the end of it. But as I say, that will depend on your setup. If you don't have anybody above the administrators in the hierarchy, then it's not going to work. So it does have to be part of the hierarchy for that to happen. Um, that was the question for that. And what's that? All P11Ds have to go through the payroll from April 2026. Yes, they do. And the process will change by then. But at the moment, it does depend on the service that you've got with us. And as it stands at the moment, I don't know how that's going to change yet. But once that has been sorted out, then it would be briefed out to everybody anyway. So it isn't that they won't be doing anything with it, but it's just that as yet it's not something that's a requirement on there. Any other questions? All good. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time, everybody, today. As I say, my apologies for the issues with the system. Just one of those things, I suppose. But as I say, I then had to let it do its other update as well because I didn't want it shutting me down again. So I do apologise for that. Thank you for your patience with all that. Despite that, I hope it's been useful for you. Thank you again, and I hope you all have a brilliant day. Thanks very much for your time.